Hello and welcome to this production. My name is Daniel Ranville, and I'm a person of historic Métis descent with proof of membership. If you've seen my other videos, you know by now that I'm a traditional storyteller. This production is meant to share some stories with viewers and subscribers like you, who I hope will be satisfactorily entertained. Enjoy my reading, and if so, please like and subscribe. Share it with others. We're halfway through our story of power, dedicated to the circle of power, our youth. And now our bullets. What teaching is associated with the wolf? How is the wolf teaching different from our present system of power? How does humility counteract the centralization of power? What is the difference between competition and humility? What is the goal of competition? What is the goal of humility? Is it possible to speak the language of all our relations? How were the pyramids built, and what is an apex or pinnacle? Give an example of distorting reality. What is a master versus a slave? And how do you explain hierarchy and power in this relationship? What is a boss and an employee relationship, and how does that resemble slavery? How do gangs operate? And how are they related to justice systems? And now part 3 of 6 on the story of power. Before the great corruption swept across valleys, deserts, prairies, and forests, power peacefully existed with humility. Societies were organized to prevent the centralization of power, allowing everyone to be their own chief, to experience freedom in the truest sense, more so than anything we know today. For example, some indigenous groups have teachings of humility from the wolf totem. A wolf pack will have what is understood as an alpha, a leader, or a chief. The chief cannot survive without the help and cooperation of the other wolves, and will not survive if the chief does not contribute to the pack. If the alpha excuses itself from the pack, what does it become? It becomes a lone wolf, both alpha and omega, and vulnerable to life and reality without a pack. The pack must cooperate for the group to perform optimally. Each member facilitates and accommodates individuals to have better life outcomes. The pack follows natural law, language, a society of dignity and self-respect with respect to natural law and all our relations. Vampire bats follow a natural law too. When food is scarce, vampire bats will share what they have with another who cries out in hunger by regurgitating blood for the hungry one. If the society of vampire bats ever discovers that a vampire bat deliberately withheld blood from another, the entire society of bats will never share with the one that was selfish. Only by cooperating can the species survive. When we modern humans observe wolf pack behavior, we make mistakes in our observations. It is our modern, self-righteous, Western ideology and belief systems that make it difficult for us to understand wolf teachings. We categorize, compartmentalize, symbolize, and we archetype. It is the code we inherited that skews our perception. In the case of the wolf pack, we project our concept of a hierarchy from alpha to foxtrot in a linear manner, an error in perception that is rooted in false belief systems, the code we inherited. Alpha is a chief. Everyone else follows, lower on the hierarchy, down to the foxtrot, we think. Our projections of hierarchy have us connecting the alpha with other false codes like being the fastest, strongest, and the absolute best, and everyone follows that one as if it is natural to do so. It is our competitive belief system that tricks us into thinking wolves naturally compete when there is nothing of the sort. There are mutual agreements, cooperation, roles, rules. We are in the habit of projecting cancel culture thinking, what we think, what we have come to believe into how we perceive reality, and often our projections, beliefs, perceptions are incorrect because what we were taught and what we learned what we came to believe is flawed. Modern humans are incapable of understanding the language of wolves or any of our relations. Cancel culture has eliminated such understanding through their programs of assimilation, coercion, oppression, hierarchical power systems of control and slavery. All we can do now at best is try to understand, and we have to ask permission to share our knowledge with cancel culture. For these reasons, we now fall short of that knowledge. This is why our indigenous traditional teachings and stories tell us that we once spoke the language of all our relations, the two-legged, the four-legged, those that fly, those that swim, those that crawl, the tree nations, the rock nations, and the star nations. Cancel culture cannot understand this teaching. It is incomprehensible to them. The traditional wolf teachings remain as they are since time immemorial, understood not in terms of hierarchy, not linear or competitive, but as a circle of power with mutual, peaceful coexistence, equality, unity, harmony. In this model, the beginning is the last, and the last is the beginning. The Alpha is the Omega, and the Omega is the Alpha. The first is the last, and the last is the first. Only as a group, individuals are powerful, sharing power to become powerful, where power is not centralized with one. At any time, the one can be challenged and humbled without prejudice. A wolf pack governs itself. When the alpha is killed by a human hunter that kills for the sake of killing, as a sport for example, the wolf pack may disband, or a new alpha or chief will emerge. If the pack disbands, the members of the former pack may seek a new pack, must find their position within the new pack, perhaps as an alpha or somewhere within the circle of power that they share. Sometimes a member of the former wolf pack will become a lone wolf and will survive alone. No one can ever tell a wolf pack what to do, whether the number is one or several. The wolf and the pack are self-governing beings. They are their own decision makers. They are free and go as they please. That is the truth. More can be said about the wolf totem teachings, but that is enough for now. The power of the wolf pack is not the same as our perceptions of power, though we in our dysfunction only see what we want to see about the wolf pack, and in so doing, we delude ourselves. We use corrupt systems of values and beliefs to exploit the vulnerable. We justify exploitation with corrupt ideology like survival of the fittest and competition and selfishness. The wealthiest, most powerful elite are a wolf pack of their own making, however dysfunctional, being out of touch with reality and us common folk. They are the apex of a pyramid scheme, the pinnacle, held up by all others, higher than all the rest. They have inherited their own legacy, the Tower of Babel. They became the closest to God, the only answer to God, and no one else, having elevated themselves as gods by creating a system of power centralized into one single elite system. They tell us that God gave them the on-off switches, binary codes, code of laws, the thou shalts and the thou shalt nots. This is the code of laws that we now inherit. These 15, and then he drops one. These 10 commandments. It is a code that is defined by a group who, having built their hierarchical structures as close as possible to the heavens, for all to see and to wonder, at such a spectacle as proof that God only speaks to them. Only they are worthy. We common folk are worthless. All law is based on this premise. This is our legacy. The most powerful humans, with all their wealth, influence, and power on the world stage, with access to resources the poor could not imagine, remain human. The COVID-19, for example, can still subject the richest and most powerful to a healthy serving of humble pie financially, mentally, emotionally, physically. In our most base comprehension of power that we desire it, we lose the ability to balance power with humility. Our mind snaps shut or turns off any notion of humility, a concept that neutralizes centralized self interest power in a healthy, balanced way. Humility is more powerful than power alone because there is no power with the humble. Humility is not to be mistaken for powerlessness. Rather, it is a kind of power that mutes a power that is power, all for itself. That is why the elite have their own wolf totem teaching, using their own perceptions and beliefs. They only verify without question the canceling due to hierarchy, power, and authority. Every single powerful person can be brought down to the levels of vulnerability with humility. History makes it self-evident, and we saw it in the Arab Spring and recently in South American countries where entire nations, economies, the wealthiest and most powerful were humbled by mass protest. We saw it in Hong Kong where millions stopped working, walked out into the streets to protest, forcing businesses to stop, and when business stops, no money can be made. The rich will bleed money daily. We are seeing it right now. When people are told to stay home, the economy grinds to a halt, and the most powerful feel the full weight of humility. Airlines are shut down, major corporations are bankrupt, layoffs have never been higher, and the bosses have lost all power due to COVID-19. Before the pandemic arrived, it was undeniable the growing gap between the rich and the poor, the rich seeing mass protests around the world, the poor making use of social media to coordinate mass events, worried about the collapse of their economic system and the loss of wealth and power, and many began to make compromises. Some wealthy suggested the masses hold them to account, to make the rich pay more in taxes, to close the tax havens and tax loopholes so they can pay their fair share in taxes, to close the gap between the rich and the poor. The place from which these suggestions came cannot be trusted. The rich and the poor, the rich had a worry that the economies would collapse and wealth would be humbled by mass protest, not with pitchforks, but with work stoppage. Unions know well the power of work stoppage. If the rich, the ones asking us to hold them to account, want to pay taxes, then pay taxes. If you know you're not paying your fair share, then why do you need our approval? Just pay your taxes. If you want, feel free to hold your rich friends to account, but you don't need our approval. Just go ahead and take the action you believe you need to take and govern yourself. We already know you need to pay more taxes, so don't ask us for approval. We approve. The rich are aware that warriors will emerge to serve cancel culture humble pie, and the rich really don't like the taste of humble pie and it smells. Warriors made the worst slaves. They continuously escaped, were caught, returned, and escaped until they were successful in liberating themselves or they died trying. Warriors believed slavery was inhumane, and it was better to die than to be enslaved. Warriors are their own masters, and no one can tell them what to do. Power without humility presents as a virus. A virus does not consider morality, ethics, of invading a host. A virus has a single purpose: to seek out a host, to replicate itself, to adapt to its environment, to mutate, to ensure survival at any cost, even if it means destroying the host and destroying itself. We cannot bargain with it. There is no negotiating. There is no reasoning. A virus only has self-interest. It has no concept of surviving in harmony with its environment. A warrior is governed by humility, balanced, and is a living expression of harmony. This concludes part 3 of 6 on the story of power. Now our bullets. Are you a follower or a leader? How do you lead? What are your thoughts on competition? Can power be humbled? Did you understand the wolf totem teachings?